Welcome back to this special edition of Inside Story from Afghanistan. We're talking about the heritage of this country. Can it be preserved? Should it be preserved? Let me turn right now to Rory Stewart from the Turquoise Mountain Foundation under the patronage of Britain's Prince of Wales, looking at restoring old parts of Kabul. When you do you do it simply because you think it should be done, or is there a view to the future that it might have uses?
I believe it has a real future and a real use. Some of it very practical. Good economic uses. Where we're working is a commercial area with 100 shops, and we'd like to develop another 50 shops in the area.
Are these traditional shops?
Traditional shops, a traditional bazaar. These are metal workers, geomancers, fortune tellers, pigeon trainers.
Sorry, explain what a geomancer is.
Geomancers are people who predict the future. They're fortune tellers of different sorts. And the area revolves around a traditional shrine. But as you can see, not just for the commerce, but also for tourists. This is a very lively area, a place that people would like to see in the future. But then there's another use, which is difficult to quantify, which is about a national pride, a national identity, and how people feel about their country as they go into the future.
I've been to places where they tell me it's a traditional souk, and in fact it's nothing of the sort. It's a very modern version of an old souk, built simply to attract visitors. Is there a danger that might happen?
Well, we're trying to stop this. One of the things that we say is, look in Dubai. In Dubai they've had to build an old city from nothing. In Frankfurt they've had to rebuild a medieval city from nothing. At least in Kabul we have an opportunity to save the existing historic city and preserve it for the future.
Dr. Najimi, the enthusiasm for traditional crafts. In Afghanistan, people have a priority, and that is to be able to feed their families. They might take any job that's offered. How do you persuade them to learn the traditional craft so that they can be preserved?
I think they learn it unappreciated by experience, because we have come across people who have been not working in this kind of projects before, and we have put time and energy to train them. But then coming back and telling us about their experience, they have turned their interest to historic environment and to historic houses, and specifically with the historic material.
But how practical is that? Because also, it needs financial support, and one day that financial support
but also
won't be
by
there.
the investors, because I've seen an owner who was building a house out of mud bricks for himself, and I said, why are you doing this? Because last year you built a concrete and glass house. He said, winter was terrible. I need a mud wall to keep me warm for next winter. So the whole case here is actually that people are learning through experiences, and one of the reasons that they have been going for the concrete and glass and whatever is simply following the examples of others without really realizing or analyzing what's happening.
I think one of the keys, of course, is the international market. And the more people understand that they can support themselves, both here in Afghanistan and also internationally with traditional crafts. We, for example, have just sold from our school a wooden room to the Connaught Hotel in London. Once people begin to understand there's a serious demand in Europe and the United States for high-quality Afghan traditional crafts, people take a very different attitude towards it. It's jobs and incomes, but it's also international appreciation for something that was previously undervalued.
Professor Samizai, do you foresee a time when the tourist trail will be open here again, when it will be safe enough and the heritage will be important for those tourists?
Perhaps there will be a new identity that still will be attractive. By that I mean is that, you know, this hybrid mix of people and all these activities may in itself create something else that might be interesting and unique in its own way. And perhaps just to kind of look at you know, some old buildings that exist in there or something like that may not necessarily be the only means of attracting the tourists, because I think that devastations in most places are so vast, and some of the projects that we have are kind of symbolic.
Yusuf Zaman, you're 26, you're chief executive of a construction company that employs 800 people. Perhaps you're indicative of the kind of Afghan who may take this country forward in the future. And when you do so, will you be looking to the past or simply to tomorrow?
Most of people are interested in rehabilitation, and my country need for construction. That's why I start my business in 2002, and day by day I become successful. Right now I have good business here, and we are working to find job opportunity for Afghan people.
Professor Samizai, if you look back to 2001 and the events then, I suppose it's quite surprising that we're sitting here now talking about something that would not have been a priority in anybody's eyes at that time.
There's been also damages to the heritage of Afghanistan done in the last 3 or 4 years. If you go to the city of Herat, you know, all the roads that are passing in the middle of the old Timurid sites, new subdivisions are built right on historic and archaeological sites, you know, tearing down in the old town, you know. Really, Herat was in some ways better preserved than the old town in Kabul, but it's really under assault by the kind of speculative buildings that are created in that. And that requires a different kind of a tackle in some ways, and I don't think so often we are really facing that right in front in a way. It's really a current, contemporary, today's problem in a way. We all know the past problems in some ways, but at the same time I think we have to also kind of sometimes stand in the front of the mirror and look at ourselves and see what are we doing.
When you involve the politicians in it, for example, because some of these things happen not only by the common man, it's also sometimes the politician involved. Either they make the wrong policy or they overlook you know, the balances or the technical requirements, etc. The reason that now we are more engaged in the historical preservation is actually also comparative to what was happening in the 70s and 60s. In the 60s and 70s, even Afghans would not understand the value of the cultural heritage, as I mentioned earlier, other than the monuments. I remember that, for example, in those days, in the planning authority in Kabul, there was always discussion about the old city of Kabul. What to do with it? Sometimes there was a discussion, let's turn it into a rail station site, because there was a discussion that Afghanistan will get a train connection to Iran or somewhere. There was a discussion in the 70s that let's turn it into a helicopter field, for example. Therefore, Afghans always felt that it's the municipality who's actually deciding the fate of the old city. If the municipality doesn't want an old city, there isn't no old city. The bulldozers will come and destroy everything, make avenues, streets, etc., high-rises, whatever, plans, master plans, whatever you call it. If it is left to the people themselves, I think people usually cherish their roots. It's not only the the physical mud wall or the carved wooden pillars or the windows, etc., etc., but also the memories. The memories that they remember from their childhood. And when we have the Afghans returning back now from Europe, from the United States, they cherish now historical projects more than they did in the 70s and 60s or before the war.
Rory Stewart, tell me a little bit about connecting with the past.
I think we need to understand it's not an either-or situation. It's not a question of a choice between the future and the past. Of course, most of the money, as it should be, is going into the future. But we desperately, desperately need support, both from the international community and from the Afghan government and from the media, for some preservation of history and culture. We're not saying dispense with all the other wonderful projects that people are doing in Afghanistan. We're not saying forget about the future, but we're saying the garbage is 7 feet deep now in the center of the historic city of Kabul. We've just cleared 1,800 trucks of garbage out of the city. The international community has been here for 5 years. Afghans are saying, what have you done for us? Bring back the Russians. At least they built roads and dams. Let us demonstrate in the historic city of Kabul that we can do something with quality, we can do something that Afghans can take pride in, and something that people can point to in 50 years' time and say, this is a project which the international community, together with the Afghan community, did for the people and did it successfully.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. You've been watching a special edition of Inside Story, brought to you from Kabul. We've been talking about Afghanistan's culture, its heritage, its future, its past. We hope you've enjoyed the discussion as much as we've enjoyed being here. Thanks for watching.